I want you to consider, just for a moment, a baby's first steps. When it tries to walk, we celebrate that progress. When it gets up and tries again, we celebrate. And we also celebrate the end outcome of successfully walking. Progress itself is fundamental to human nature. We continue to grow and develop throughout our life, and it gives us an instinctive need to grow ourselves and to watch others and support others grow. Yet somewhere along the way, as we grow up, we become focused on the end outcome, the successful or failure outcome almost, the all or nothing. We forget to appreciate the progress that happens along the way. So, for example, we expect to write the first time we write an assignment, we expect it to be correct and perfect. The first time we give a presentation, we expect it to be perfect. We're expected to have a perfect idea what we want to do in life when we're young, even though the outcome is so far from our present that so many things can happen along the way, and that uncertainty causes anxiety and can paralyze us from taking action. So today, after leaving, I'd like you to start to consider having a progress mindset, one where you consider all of the learnings that will happen along the way, the incremental steps that you do to improve yourself, as opposed to always focusing on the end outcome of events. My name is Dr. Juliette Tobias-Webb, and today I want to talk to you briefly about my journey and then what I learned about the power of progress. So my journey started here at this school. I came to this school, I studied in those buildings, and I unfortunately wore those brown shoes. I wasn't academically inclined at all. I didn't do well on those average school-weighted tests. I was really interested in sport, and I used to be the one that when assignments were due, I would be standing on the toilet seat or in sick bay, trying to hide from the teachers. I thought I was getting away with this until the beginning of year 11, where I was pulled into my career counsellor's office, and they said to me, I think you need to consider your life options and reconsider sitting your year 12 exams, because I was performing so poorly, they were worried I was going to let the school down as well as myself. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was older, but going to university sounded like a pretty good next step for me as opposed to going to full-time work. So that was a wake-up call. I started to try really hard for the next 2 years, and I scraped into university with a pretty average year 12 result. In the first semester of university, I was so worried about performing poorly that I was trying to apply the 3 hours a night study rule, or 3 hours a day study rule that they taught me here. I was at the lecturer's and the tutor's office all the time before assignments and exams were due, knocking on their door, asking for help. And by the end of the first year, my first year at university, I topped nearly every subject. I was offered positions into physiotherapy and medicine, where a year ago they were completely off the cards. And I was offered a scholarship. I decided to take the scholarship to Bond University to fast-track my psychology degree. There, I continued with my success for my undergrad and my honours degree. And without even knowing it, at the end, I was awarded an academic medal presented by Prime Minister John Howard. It was at that ceremony that I saw my interest for this strange-looking black PhD floppy hat. Again, after university, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought I was interested in neuropsychology and brain imaging, so I reached out to a few different clinicians as well as universities, and I was fortunate that University of Sydney gave me a position as a research officer studying youth mental health and brain imaging. Now, I found out real fast that I did not like neuropsychology, but I loved understanding how the brain worked. So I loved working with these youth with mental health problems as well and helping them think about a progress mindset as opposed to these end result outcomes. At the university, I didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I definitely wanted to keep my options open. So I tried to publish, and I published many academic papers there. I don't know when it was when I started to think about going to international universities, but I do remember the day that I walked into a university and decided I would just apply. I sent a few emails out to some professors at Oxford and Cambridge University, and within a week, to my surprise, they had all written back and said that they would accept me into the university, into their lab if I got into the university. I think you probably know what happened next. This is me at the University of Cambridge. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that the decision to sit my Year 12 exams would lead me on such an unexpected path where I got a doctorate from the University of Cambridge and have now taught at many international universities. And I get goosebumps sometimes when I tell this story, not because of my achievements, but because it was such an unexpected path for me. And it makes me believe that people who don't expect some of the outcomes that they want can still achieve that. I'm human, I still forget things all over the place, and yet I'm still able to achieve my goal. Now, just briefly, I wanted to talk to you about the 3 things that I learned about progress. The first one is that progress makes you proactive. There are many psychological studies that show us that actually humans are pretty lazy and we like to just go with the flow. When you become active, you set yourself apart. And when you become proactive, you look you are more open to new opportunities. And through those opportunities, you begin to learn and build new skills. Learning itself releases a neurochemical within your brain called dopamine. This is the reward chemical of your brain. So it makes you happier, and it also makes you, it increases your subjective well-being, but it also increases your motivation. So you're more likely to act, and you're more likely to be open to different opportunities. Now, I'm proudly proactive, and I say this because I could be really neurotic about it. I mentioned a few different scenarios before, but when I found out I got into the University of Cambridge, I couldn't go without a scholarship, and you had to wait about 2 more months to find out if you get a scholarship. It was about £33,000 a year, and so I needed to try to raise this money, and I wanted to be proactive so that if I didn't get a scholarship, I could still go. This picture shows you, this is about 1/5 of all of the emails that I decided to send one day to random people, to organisations, asking them for funding requests. Even these ones where it says sort of 3 and 3, this was just me forwarding it on to somebody else that I thought might be able to fund me. Little did I know, 2 months later, I actually received a Cambridge University scholarship, and I had to awkwardly write back and say, I'm so sorry, thank you for your consideration. So I really encourage you to be proactive in what you do in the future and just reach out, because you have to be in it to win it. The second thing that progress taught me is to persevere. Life isn't always easy, and sometimes we just have to put one foot in front of the other. Carol Dweck from the University of Stanford talks about having a growth mindset. This is the mindset where you continue to believe your abilities are able to grow and you're able to learn as opposed to them being fixed. If you have a growth mindset, even if you just trick yourself and think you have a growth mindset, you're more likely to progress in life and be successful. And you're also more likely to be able to take on negative feedback. So we've all had times where we thought we weren't good enough or somebody has told us that. If you have a growth mindset, you can see that as an opportunity for growth as opposed to an innate limitation. I really learnt about perseverance when early in my career I was bullied. Then I learnt about perseverance through when I was applying for these scholarships and going to interviews. I totally bombed a lot of them. I mean, I seriously walked out feeling really embarrassed by some of my performance, but I had to get up and do it again. And early on in my undergraduate degree, my brother suffered from a really serious brain injury. And for about a year, when I was 19, I was the only person on the Gold Coast that could look after him or support him. When he had bad days and I had assignments or exams coming up, there were times where I didn't think that I could make it through, where I thought maybe I'll have to drop out. But by persevering and thinking about sort of making progress-oriented goals, I used to tell myself, just get up one more day. 20 minutes of sitting in front of a task that you don't want to do builds motivation. I actually don't know if that's true. Someone just told me that, and I've never wanted to look it up because I really like it and I use it all the time. And the third one is just think about just tick one thing off your list each day. That's still progress, and that's something I used throughout my PhD. If I was having a bad day or I couldn't be bothered, I just ticked at least one thing off, even if it was easy. Finally, progress leads to new passions and new potential. By being proactive, you open yourself up to new opportunities. And when new opportunities arrive, you find interests and passions. When you're passionate about something, you want to persevere and get better at it, no matter if times get tough. And through that, you can find your potential. So I'm going to give you one last example. I found my potential on my last day at Cambridge University completing my PhD. So what happens is you have to go in and you submit your thesis, and then you wait about 2 months to undergo an interview, which is called a viva. During that viva, the two examiners, so they're professors, kind of almost, go through and really rip your thesis apart and ask you really difficult questions. It goes for 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours, and there's 4 outcomes. You either get a fail, which is really unheard of, you get a pass with major corrections, or a pass with minor corrections. These themselves are pretty common. Or you get a pass with no corrections. Again, very rare. So after I finished my 2.5-hour interview, I went outside, I sat down and I waited for them to deliberate. It was the longest 5 minutes of my life. When I came in, I remember sitting down and being so nervous because they had these kind of flat faces on. And then they smiled and said, "Congratulations, Juliette, you've passed your PhD." I couldn't believe that year 10 Juliette, who I still feel like year 10 Juliette, had somehow got to Cambridge University and passed her PhD. And then they said, with no corrections. And I literally didn't know what to say. I kind of just stared at them blankly for probably a minute, where they said again, "You've got no corrections." And that to me was the day where I really realized my true potential through just focusing always on a progress mindset. I didn't have end outcomes always in sight. So for those of you who are unsure where you're going next, or feel that you might not be able to succeed at times, I encourage you just to continue to progress on your journey. Be open to opportunities and know that you yourself are a work in progress.